The year 2023 saw a number of significant events that had a significant impact on the geopolitical picture of the Middle East and the South Caucasus. Besides, we witnessed another escalation of the Arab-Israeli conflict, the attacks of Yemen's Houthi on ships on one of the world's strategically important sea routes, Azerbaijan's restoration of full sovereignty over Karabakh, France's activation in the South Caucasus and Central Asia, China's growing influence in the Middle East. In this video, we are going to talk about the top 6 personalities from the Middle East and South Caucasus who influenced the course of major regional events in 2023, according to AZfront. Wang Yi, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of China. Wang Yi is responsible for the normalization of relations between Saudi Arabia and Iran. In March 2023, he brokered a deal between the two countries to restore diplomatic relations. As the New York Times noted, it was among the topsiest and turviest of developments anyone could have imagined. Wang Yi made his first attempts to normalize Saudi-Iranian relations 2 years before the agreement was signed. That is, in 2021, during a tour of the Middle East. The very next year, the Chinese foreign minister was already negotiating the deal with his Saudi and Iranian counterparts. As a result, the agreement was signed in Beijing on the 10th of March 2023. Saudi Arabia and Iran, which have been vying for years for influence not only in the region but across the Muslim world, resumed diplomatic relations and operations of the embassies in both countries. Normalization between the two countries could change geopolitics in the Middle East and beyond, uniting close U.S. partner Saudi Arabia with Iran, which Washington and its allies see as a security threat and a source of global instability. With the conclusion of this agreement, Wang Yi achieved the strengthening of China's influence in a region traditionally dominated by the United States. Beijing took the position of pro-Palestinian neutrality after the start of the next escalation of the Arab-Israeli conflict on October 7, 2023. On October 15th, in a telephone conversation with Iran's foreign minister, Wang Yi stressed that the reason for the escalation was long-term neglect of the Palestinian people's rights to survival and establishment of an independent state. He underlined that China will support the just cause of the Palestinian people in safeguarding their national rights. On November 20th, Wang Yi received Arab foreign ministers in Beijing, and on November 29th, he chaired a ministerial-level regular meeting of the UN Security Council on the escalation around the Gaza Strip. Despite attempts to expand its political influence in the Middle East, Beijing has not taken significant steps to become a mediator in the Arab-Israeli conflict. This could have provided China with the status of a peacemaker in the region versus Washington, which supports Israel. Emmanuel Macron, the President of France. French President Macron distinguished himself in 2023 by expanding his influence in 2 regions at once, the South Caucasus and Central Asia. Taking advantage of Pashinyan's reorientation from Russia to the West, France has assumed the role of Armenia's military and political patron. On April 24th, Intelligence Online, the unofficial mouthpiece of France's intelligence services, noted that Paris had begun preparations to build an arms export system for Armenia. On October 23rd, the defense ministries of Armenia and France signed documents on bilateral cooperation. Almost 3 weeks later, France delivered the first batch of expected armored personnel carriers to Armenia. 2023 was also a breakthrough year for Macron in Central Asia. This happened due to the weakening of Russia's influence in this territory because of the ongoing war in Ukraine. Since the beginning of the year, official Paris has held events in Central Asia to increase its influence. In January, political consultations were held between the foreign ministries of France and Turkmenistan. In April, President's Special Representative Isabelle Dumont visited Astana, Tashkent, and Bishkek. In May, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan hosted Minister for Foreign Trade, Olivier Becht. And finally, in September, Turkmenistan's Foreign Minister Rashid Miradov was welcomed in Paris. In November, Macron himself visited Astana and Tashkent. This was the first visit of a French president to Uzbekistan. In the same month, the president of Kyrgyzstan, Sadir Japarov, visited Paris. At the same time, the first Franco-Kyrgyz Business Forum was held. The French president, taking advantage of the escalation in the Middle East, tried to expand influence in this region, but failed. Just over 2 weeks after the Hamas invasion, Macron embarked on a tour of the Middle East. It allowed him to meet with the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, President of Palestine Mahmoud Abbas, King Abdullah II of Jordan, and President of Egypt, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. On October 30th, the French newspaper Le Figaro noted that the president's tour ended in yet another failure of French diplomacy, due to Macron's constant change of stance that emphasized the absence of France's diplomatic line. It is precisely because of the deepening crisis of French diplomacy in the Arab countries, as well as the loss of former political influence in North and West Africa, that Macron is trying to compensate by increasing activity in the Caucasus and Central Asia. Ismail Haniyeh, the chairman of the Hamas Political Bureau, one of the key figures who influenced the outbreak of war between Hamas and Israel, was the head of the Hamas Political Bureau, Ismail Haniyeh. He took full credit for the expansion of Hamas's political and military power, which led to the invasion of Israel on the 7th of October 2023. Haniyeh provided external support for the organization to build up its military capabilities by developing relations with countries in the region, most notably Iran. In private meetings and telephone conversations with Iranian senior officials, Haniyeh persuaded them to increase pressure on Israel through Iranian proxy forces, such as Hezbollah and the Houthis. The head of the Hamas Political Bureau also sought to push Pakistan to take concrete action against Israel. On November 12th, the leader of Pakistan's Islamist political party, Jamaat-e-Islami, Siraj-ul-Haq, met with Haniyeh in Doha. On December 6th, Haniyeh, speaking in Islamabad, stated that Pakistan is a strong nuclear-armed country. If Pakistan threatens Israel, then the war can stop. The invasion of southern Israel by Hamas under the leadership of Haniyeh on October 7th was a blow to the interests of many countries in the region, such as Israel, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates. As a result, the process of establishing diplomatic relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia has been derailed at the very last moment. The Abraham Accords were undermined. They were signed in 2020 with U.S. support between Israel and Arab countries including UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan to establish diplomatic relations. Right on the eve of early presidential elections in Egypt, stability in the country was threatened. The Egyptian authorities tried to balance between pro-Palestinian sentiments of the population, calls to help the Gaza Strip, and the unwillingness to accept Palestinian refugees in Egypt. Irreparable damage was done to the slow process of restoration of Turkish-Israeli relations. The plans for creation of the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor were cancelled. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. Almost immediately after the incursion of Hamas and Islamic Jihad militants into southern Israel on the 7th of October, discussions began in the country and on the world stage about the reasons for the failure of the Israeli government, led by Prime Minister Netanyahu. The latter was hit by a barrage of criticism and discontent from Israelis. There were also doubts about his ability to ensure the security of the country. Many began to accuse him of thinking more about his political survival than about resolving the situation. The results of numerous polls have shown that Israelis see Netanyahu as fully responsible for what happened. On October 13th, Israel's third most popular website, Maariv, conducted a survey according to which 86% of respondents blamed Netanyahu for the failure, while 56% thought he should resign after the end of the war. Another poll commissioned by Maariv and conducted on October 18, 19, found that 82% of Israelis thought Netanyahu should take responsibility for the Hamas invasion. According to the Israel Democracy Institute, the level of trust towards the government has reached its lowest point since 2003. In addition to numerous polls, there is also other evidence of Netanyahu's guilt in starting the war in the Middle East. On October 30th, Israel's website, Ynet, published a secret document which noted that in 2016, then Minister of Defense, Avigdor Lieberman warned the head of government about a possible Hamas attack. Lieberman proposed a surprise strike against Hamas, with the aim of eliminating most of the command staff of armed forces. He warned that postponing such an operation to a later date than July of 2017 would be a great mistake and would have far-reaching consequences. At that time, Netanyahu, who had read this document, did not give much significance to it. Between 2011 and 2021, the Shabak General Security Service provided the Israeli Prime Minister with operational plans to eliminate the leadership of Hamas, including the organization's leader in the Gaza Strip, Yahya Sinwar. However, Netanyahu blocked such initiatives each time. In addition, in 2019 and 2022, the Israeli military intelligence Amman provided the government with detailed information on two versions of Hamas's operational plan to invade southern Israel and seize border settlements. But in both cases, the political leadership did not attach the necessary importance to this. Thus, it was the policy of containment and appeasement pursued by Netanyahu that became one of the main reasons for the outbreak of the war in the Gaza Strip and the current escalation of the Arab-Israeli conflict, which still continues to negatively affect the entire region. Abdul-Malik Al-Houthi, leader of the Yemen's Houthis organization Ansar Allah. Abdul-Malik Al-Houthi became a key figure who negatively affected world trade after the 19th of October, 2023, when the Houthis under his leadership entered the current escalation of the Arab-Israeli conflict. On the 14th of November, 2023, he threatened to attack any ship that crosses the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Al-Houthi's threat was realized 5 days after his statement. The first ship to be attacked and seized by the Houthis in the Red Sea was the cargo ship Galaxy Leader, privately co-owned by an Israeli. The Houthis have not yet released the ship, which had 52 people on board at the time of the capture. It was after this incident that the concerns of large shipping companies about the safety of this sea route increased. As a result of the Houthi attacks, prices for shipping from China to Israel increased by 9 to 14%. Major shipping companies such as the Israeli shipping company Zim, the Danish AP, Moller-Maersk, the German Hapag-Lloyd, the French CMA CGM, the Swiss Mediterranean Shipping Company and Orient Overseas Container Line, based in Hong Kong, have changed their route or completely abandoned transportation in this direction. In addition, one of the largest oil and gas companies, British BP, temporarily suspended the transit of oil tankers through the Red Sea on December 18th. Another consequence was an 80% monthly decrease in revenue from one of Israel's largest ports, Eilat. The Red Sea accounts for approximately 14% of world trade. The Houthis control its southern part, through which more than 10% of international maritime cargo transportation is carried out, including most of the Asian trade with Europe. Ilham Aliyev, the president of Azerbaijan. In 2023, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev put an end to the occupation of Karabakh, which had lasted more than 30 years. On September 19th, the Azerbaijani armed forces launched a counter-terrorist operation in Karabakh. The following conditions were put forward to end the operation: disarmament of all military personnel, dismantling of illegal structures such as parliament, ministry, etc. in Karabakh. On September 20th, the Armenian separatists in Karabakh declared complete capitulation. Their illegal administrative structures were dissolved and armed formations were liquidated. Thus, Azerbaijan, under the leadership of Aliyev, restored full sovereignty over Karabakh. The so-called former leadership of the Armenian separatists was detained by Azerbaijani special services. The 100,000 Armenian population of Karabakh returned to its national state, Armenia. Thus, Aliyev put an end to 30 years of separatism on the territory of Azerbaijan. Aliyev's policy line towards Karabakh Armenians is unambiguous. Either you accept Azerbaijani citizenship and reintegrate into Azerbaijani society, or you leave Karabakh. The president guaranteed them all rights in accordance with international conventions. Currently, the country's leadership is working to achieve peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia. The parties are actively negotiating the approval of a draft peace treaty. On November 22nd, the newspaper Kommersant noted, "The peace process between Azerbaijan and Armenia has begun to show signs of life." On November 22nd, both sides, without collusion, declared their readiness to resume negotiations. Aliyev, for his part, favors direct negotiations with Yerevan. In addition to his success in the region, the president has turned Azerbaijan into a strategic partner of the EU. Azerbaijan is one of the main countries through which Russian energy resources are substituted in the European market. Baku supplies oil and gas to Romania, Croatia, Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Austria, Germany, Greece, Spain, Ireland, Portugal, and Italy. In 2023, in order to further expand relations with European countries, Aliyev paid visits to Switzerland, Hungary, Germany, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Bulgaria, and Serbia. As a result, an agreement on the supply Azerbaijani gas to Hungary and Serbia was reached. According to the latest data, Azerbaijan exported 19.8 billion cubic meters of natural gas in the first 10 months of 2023, of which almost 50%, 9.8 billion cubic meters, were exported to Europe. On December 10th, Aliyev announced that he plans to expand the number of European countries to which Azerbaijan supplies gas. The Caucasus and Middle East is closer to Europe and US than it seems at first glance. Subscribe and click on the bell in order to be informed of the main events. See you soon.